It is done. You have let go of that which made you mortal. Your ties to this world severed. You are ready to be a god.
It is not over. The gods will pay for this.
Enough, Kratos!
My lord, Kratos! Another city is ready to fall! Soon all shall know the glory of Sparta!
He had found a new family in the warriors of Sparta. The Spartans would see him as one of their own, the true son of Sparta.
With every city you destroy, the wrath of Olympus grows. Soon I will no longer be able to protect you.
I need no protection.
Do not forget that it was I who made you a god, ghost of Sparta. Do not turn your back on me.
I owe you nothing.
Then you leave me no choice.
Kratos had turned the pain of his memories into hatred. Hatred for the gods.
Vita! You conspire against me! Kratos, I do not need your help, Zeus.
Kratos had no need for the love of petty gods.
I can take down this beast. I offer you more than help, Kratos. I offer you the Blade of Olympus. It was this blade that ended the Great War and defeated the Titans.
Gaia foretold our salvation. Ghost of Sparta.
Train your godly powers into the sword, Kratos. Only then will you reach your full potential.
Placing all of his godly power into the weapon had rendered Kratos mortal.
What I do now, I do for the good of all Olympus. I am forced to attend to this matter myself. Will not let Ares' fate be my own. You will pay for this, Zeus. Be certain of that. The cycle ends here.
As the life drained out of Kratos, the arms of Hades reached out to claim their prize. But there was more resting on Kratos' shoulders than he could know. Kratos was destined to bring about change so severe that it would shake the very pillars of Mount Olympus. His death was something that I could not allow.
Ares! Destroy my enemies, and my life is yours!
Fight, Spartan. You are not meant to die here. This is not the end.
Who are you?
I am the Titan Gaia, ever-present Mother of Earth. I have watched you become a powerful warrior, and I have been with you through all the events of your life, but I can no longer simply watch. We will help you defeat Zeus. Death is an escape, Kratos. You are a warrior of Sparta, not a coward. Only a coward accepts death.
I am no coward.
Then you must fight. I will show you the way to the Sisters of Fate. Only with their power will you defeat Zeus.
Hello everyone and welcome back to more Let's Play God of War 2. Last time we died. Again. This time we're gonna get out of hell and try to get our godly powers back. All of which is now in the Blade of Olympus. Some of it was taken and put in the Colossus of Rhodes. We beat that up. We put the rest of it into the Blade of Olympus. We then put all the stuff that Colossus had into the Blade of Olympus. So all of our godly power is in the Blade of Olympus. We have to get it back, but first we have to climb out of hell. Holy dang nabbit, is this section annoying. It is awful in Titan mode. This section takes forever. You have to be super careful. The enemies here do so much damage. These Hades hands do so much damage. I'm not a fan of this section at all in the higher difficulties. It's not that fun. It's one of the few low points of God of War 2, I think, is this climbing out section. The narrative purpose behind it, fantastic. Actually playing it in the highest difficulty, annoying as all get out. The strategy here is you want to use triangle attacks while you're climbing, because those kill the hands in one hit. So you do that. You can also grab the hands, which not only immediately kill the hand you're grabbing, but also a bunch of hands that are like nearby that hand. So triangle attacks and grabbing hands is a great way to kill a bunch of hands really quick. They all give you health. You want to do the grabbing thing as often as possible, because otherwise you're gonna die really quick. Oh man, that section is just brutal. It's triangle attacks, grabbing hands. When you have an opportunity and you have a lot of health and you think you can survive a few hits, go ahead and keep moving. Oh boy, that section is rough. It is just rough. Now that we're back in Rhodes, we can see what's left of the broken Spartan army. Oh boy. A lot of dead Spartans here. This game does a great job of putting you in the shoes of Kratos. In the first game, again, it was all about getting to witness Kratos' backstory, but now we're actually living it, and it's...
My lord, I knew you could not be killed. I never lost faith.
Return to Sparta and prepare for battle.
But our brothers are dead.
You can still hold a sword. Spartans do not surrender. Do as your god commands.
And what of you, my lord?
I am going after Zeus. It seems I still have allies in Olympus.
The whole section just hits really well because you got to play this and you actually got to see the consequences of everything that happened. This whole section is really well done. I really like it. So in the save point, and it's time to leave the opening area of the game and move on to Rhodes. Here I'm making sure the tutorials are on because I want to make sure they're on for the minigame that we're going to do next. So that's what that was about. Here we go. Big cutscene.
Turn back to Olympus, beast! I must face Zeus! You defy the god of war!
You are no longer a god, Kratos. Zeus, Olympus, and the blade which holds all your power will forevermore be out of reach. Your only hope is to find the Sisters of Fate and travel back through time to the moment Zeus betrayed you, for only then will he truly be vulnerable. Kratos, to succeed, you will need more help than I can give. My Titan brother slumbers deep inside his mountain prison. Go. It is time he was awakened.
Welcome to the Pegasus minigame. We will be playing this minigame 2 times. The first time is to get used to it. The second time is actually going to have a boss fight attached to it. So get used to the controls as quickly as possible. In Titan mode, the best strategy is slamming things left or right with L1 or R1 respectively. If you want to slam things to the left, L1. You want to slam things to the right, R1. There are some attacks that Kratos can do with his Blades of Athena. You don't really want to waste your time with those in Titan mode. You would much rather just do the heavy damage attacks with the slam with L1 or R1, depending on which direction the enemy griffins and soldiers riding these griffins are facing. In this case, no soldiers are riding the griffins, but, you know, eventually they'll be riding the griffins. Don't bother with regular attacks, just L1 or R1. That does the most damage. Anytime you see a raven off in the distance, you want to charge into it, so you can do the C mashing circle Q to E. And here we're introduced to our second boss. This is the Dark Rider. I believe the God of War 2 novelization actually calls him the Warrior of Destiny. And I believe the God of War 2 wiki actually suggests that he might be a Greek hero that we can talk about more. We can talk about more later in our second encounter with him. For now, though, this first encounter is just dodging his attacks. I dodged perfectly, but somehow I died. Not a fan of what happened there at all. You're supposed to lose that encounter and actually get hit by that and fall like this. But even though I did that, I died last time, which I don't know how that happened. Whatever. Regardless, welcome to the Lair of the Titan. This is our first true area of the game. The game has now started. The opening act stuff is done. The minigame is done. It's now time.
Who dares to enter this place?
As I was saying, we dare to enter this place because it's now time to actually play the game from square one and start upgrading ourselves and doing all the things that we do normally. So here we go. The Lair of the Titan is our first big area of the game. It's also the least interesting area of the game because it's not that much to look at. It's not that long. We're only going to be here for a brief amount of time. When it comes to God of War 2's visuals, the game is for the most part fantastic. I find the Lair of the Titan to be the weakest part of the game, but it's a small complaint at best.
You do not have enough power to lift the fingers of the great Titan. You must free the Pegasus Corps. It is your only passage to the Sisters of Fate.
It's a small complaint at best because we're going to be building up to some really, really fantastic locales and visuals that God of War 2 has to offer. So the fact that this area is kind of boring is really small in comparison because unlike, say, Pandora's Temple from God of War 1, this isn't going to last long at all. And we'll be out of here before you know it, and then we'll be off to bigger and grander things. But here we are, Lair of the Titan. Lair of the Titan, first enemies we're introduced to are the Harpies. Oh my goodness, the Harpies. They are just as annoying as they were in God of War 1. Actually, I think they might be a little bit more annoying in God of War 2. I can't scientifically prove that, but I feel, as I played this with their encounters, that they're just a little bit more annoying than they were in God of War 1. Dealing with them remains the same. You don't want to actually attack them. You want to just grab them and they will die instantly, but oh man, they are not great to deal with at all. You can try attacking Typhon's fingers here. It's not going to matter. It's not going to do anything. We have to come back later once we have the appropriate power to do so. Now we have a long wall climbing and fighting sequence. Immediately, right off the bat, you can tell that God of War 2 it does a much better job with the wall climbing and wall fighting stuff than God of War 1. God of War 1 was really not great with how unfair its wall climbing and wall fighting combat was. But God of War 2, he has fixed it up. This is the style of wall fighting and wall combat that we're going to be seeing for the rest of the franchise. So well done. They got it right the second time, and they stuck with that for the rest of the franchise's history, at least until we get to the Norse duology, and even Ascension. Ascension doesn't have that many. Wall climbing sequences, and I'm pretty sure there's like no instance of you actually having to fight enemies on a wall or on a ceiling or something like that in Ascension. So that's something. This, unfortunately, for this very first wall climbing sequence, it's easy. It's much better than it was in God of War 1, but it's very long, so that's why I sped it up. It takes forever to get this done. There is some landscaping happening outside, so if you hear anything that isn't just my voice or like me drinking or something like that, I apologize in advance, because that's just the way it's going to be. I am lowering the volume of my microphone and speaking much closer into it to hopefully drown out whatever landscaping noises you might be hearing. But some things are inevitably going to slip through. I apologize for that. I don't work in like a professional studio setting. This is just me in my room. Distractions happen. Unfortunately, we just gotta live with them. It is what it is. I'm not a fan of it at all. They landscape so often that it is downright annoying, but whatever. We've encountered more harpies that we dealt with, and we've encountered our first Minotaur. Minotaurs in God of War 2 are they're about on par to what they were in God of War 1. They're not that difficult to deal with at all. These variants, anyway. There's actually a few variants. God of War 2 is pretty cool in that there are variants of enemies, some of which are exactly as they were in the original God of War, but then there are others that are radically different. There are variants that are radically different and brand new to God of War 2, and variants that are exactly as they were in God of War 1. They do that to throw you off, to put you into a state of ease, and then to introduce new stuff at you that you're going to have to react to and get good at fighting. Otherwise, you're going to be screwed. There's a backtracking option there too with that grapple point. There's no actual reason to backtrack right now. There's no hidden collectible or anything there. It's just going to be our way to quickly get back to Typhon once we're done getting the power that we need to actually free our Pegasus and continue onwards. The Island of Creation is still very, very far away, and we need our Pegasus. We can't just swim there. We can't just walk there. It's really, really far away. The God of War 2 novelization actually does a great job of explaining just how far away it is. Apparently, it is 6 days travel from the most remote, desolate island in all of Greece, which apparently is this mountain layer of Typhon. It takes 6 days to get from here to the Island of Creation, and it takes longer if you're like in a Greek city-state or something like that. The Island of Creation, which is where the Sisters of Fate reside, which is where we're going, is really, really far removed from the entirety of the Greek world. It's really, really interesting how they describe it in the novelization. Now, I want to briefly talk about the novelization while I'm beating up this Minotaur. It's really good. It's way better than it was. It's way better than the novelization for the original God of War. Original God of War its novelization wasn't the worst, but it definitely had room for improvement, and it was definitely interesting to read like a slightly different script of perhaps an earlier and alternate version of the original God of War. God of War 2's novelization is much more true to what the game actually is, and it's really interesting, but we'll get into more later. Here's a cutscene with Prometheus now.
God of War, you live. I no longer walk with the gods. Who has placed you in this torment?
Zeus. My only crime was helping mankind. When I took the fires of Olympus to the mortals, Zeus considered it a betrayal. As punishment, he made me mortal and condemned me to be savagely consumed every day by this cursed bird. And then, with the fall of night, I am healed. How long have I been here? How long have I suffered this curse? I truly do not know. Please, Ghost of Sparta, release me from my torment!
That was absolutely gory, but let's go ahead and try to free Prometheus here right now.
I must burn into the fires of Olympus. It is the only way. Kill me, Kratos. Kill me.
Okay, that didn't work. We need more gear if we're actually going to free Prometheus from the burden that is living the way he was living. Prometheus, famously the Titan that brought fire to humanity. Hooray! Zeus punished him severely for that, and now he's being eaten every single day. That's not great. That's not great at all. Here we have a view of the entrance to Typhon's Cavern, where the actual Titan is hanging out at. The novelization actually brings a lot more life to the character of Typhon, talking about why he is so hostile towards Kratos, and by extension to Gaia. We didn't even talk about Gaia yet. It's really awesome that God of War 2 delivers the twist of its narrator right off the bat. Already in the second game of the franchise, we're already, upending the status quo of what the first game was. Narrator, now she's an ally who hates Zeus and is going to help us. It's really cool. I really like the characterization of Gaia in this game. Gaia is a little bit... There's some things that are off about God of War 3, which we'll get to once we eventually get to God of War 3, but in this game, I really like Gaia. She's a really, really well-realized and well-voiced character. There's not much to her. There's not much to many of the characters in this game because this isn't the Norse saga where there's deep characterization and moments of introspection and all that stuff. But these characters all serve their purpose really, really well, and that should be applauded. This game does a really, really good job of what it sets out to do, which is push you into the vengeance fantasy of pushing you into the role of the person who is getting revenge, and it does that really, really well. This game is really, really good at succeeding on the one thing it's laser focused at doing. So here we go, some more wall fighting. This is brief. Again, it's much better in this game, but it is slow, so there's going to be moments where that happens where I'm going to speed up because, oh boy, some of those segments can take a while. Just pressing circle to grab enemies. And that still remains the best strategy for dealing with enemies on walls and ceilings. You will notice that I'm no longer doing my go-to strategy of launching enemies up into the sky and mashing circle. That's because the enemies in God of War 2 don't react as well to that, and also because Kratos himself is a lot slower to launch enemies up in the sky. We got our first Phoenix Feather here, 6 for more magic. Kratos is a lot slower to launch enemies up into the sky than he was in God of War 1 or in Chains of Olympus or things like that. So that's a strategy we're not really going to be relying on as much. It comes in handy every now and again, but for the most part, it's not something we're going to do that often. Here we're being introduced to Gorgons. Gorgons, of course, from the first game. They react, they fight, basically the same as they did then. They're going to try to stare at you, just roll out of the way of that. Eventually we'll be able to parry them, but that's not going to be for a while. One of the few things I'm not as big a fan of in God of War 2, and that's just because I've been playing the other God of War games before this one and noticed just how long it takes in God of War 2. You don't get the ability to parry for a while in God of War 2. In some God of War games, parrying is locked behind story progression. In some games, it's locked behind level up progression. God of War 2 locks it behind story progression, and it is a while before you get the piece of gear that lets you parry things. Chains of Olympus had it locked behind story progression as well, but it didn't take that long. It didn't take that long to get the ability to parry things in Chains of Olympus. In God of War 2, it takes a while to get the ability to parry. And in Ascension, the original God of War, and Ghost of Sparta, I believe that parrying is locked behind leveling up things. Leveling up certain pieces of gear, usually your blades. Boy, oh boy, it takes a while for you to be able to parry in God of War 2. Now, thankfully, the game accommodates for that and makes the enemies before that point not that big of a hassle, and the bosses before that point not reliant on you needing to parry. But you definitely miss it. Once you finally get it, it's like reuniting with an old friend, not realizing just how much you needed it. The Gorgon fight's pretty straightforward. You fight one by itself, then you fight two with a bunch of harpies. The harpies make this fight annoying because, of course, they do. That's their specialty, making things annoying. Oh boy. Thankfully, there aren't that many, and, not many more join in on the fun after you kill the initial batch. Try to get the Gorgons to dispatch the harpies by using their stare. If you want to force a Gorgon to do its stare attack, try to grab them. Gorgons can't be grabbed, and they automatically react to Kratos trying to grab them by doing the stare attack. This is something that's going to be much more important in the extras video once we do Challenge of the Titans. But for general gameplay, if you want to force a Gorgon to do the stare, just try to grab them. They're going to back away, and they're automatically going to respond by doing the stare. It took a while to beat the Harpies. It takes a while to kill the Gorgons, so I'm just speeding it up. It's not a complicated fight by any stretch of the imagination. You don't have parries, but the actual mechanics of what you're doing is not... it's not crazy. It's pretty straightforward what you're actually doing here. So I figured it was okay to speed up a little bit until we could get to the end of this, because it can take a while. And these videos are already going to be long enough because God of War 2 is already a pretty long game. Not something that I've talked about yet, so actually let's talk about that. God of War 2 is the longest game in the Greek saga. Right now I'm just backtracking to get myself some more health. So that's nice. And God of War game is the longest game in the God of War 2 is the longest game in the Greek saga. Ascension clocked in at approximately 8 hours. Chains of Olympus clocked in at approximately 4. The original God of War clocked in at about 7 hours. Ghost of Sparta clocked in at about 5 to 5.5 hours, depending. And spoiler alert, God of War 3 is going to clock in at about the same amount of time as God of War 1, with approximately 7 hours to complete. God of War 2 is a little over 9 hours long. It's not, it's not much longer than any other God of War game, and it's pretty short by modern standards of video games. But it is the longest game in the Greek saga. And a lot of that comes down to things that we'll be discussing in future videos. Namely, how God of War 2 handles its pacing, which I think it handles, really, really well for the most part. But there is an obvious formula that's being followed to increase the amount of time that it takes to finish God of War 2 as compared to finishing, God of War 1 or God of War 3 upcoming. Right now we're dealing with Typhon. Typhon is going to try to blow us out of the arena and kill us. You can hide behind rocks. Harpies are going to try to attack you. They're annoying, as they always are. You can just grab them and kill them automatically that way. Sometimes Kratos will just throw them off the platform, which is even better, because that's an even faster way to kill them. God of War 2 no longer has the issue of God of War 1, where if an enemy dies really far away, and Kratos is not going to get the red orbs. Kratos will always get the red orbs. The red orbs always aggro to him. We no longer have to worry about red orbs being too far away from Kratos to actually properly collect and use. We do have to worry about the fact that it's Titan mode, and some of the red orbs are only worth 1, and thus they're not going to increase our orb count at all. We got a bunch of red orbs there, but we only went up to 16 to 1,634 because a bunch of the red orbs are only worth 1, and thus they're not going to count towards our grand total. Over here we have 2 options. We can continue the story by just knocking down that rock to Kratos's right there, or we can go to the left here and get a secret. It's not a big secret. It's pretty obvious that you can also come here as an alternate path. Basically, you can just knock enemies into that fire. That fire will, heat up a little bit more, and the ice that is keeping the chests locked up will begin to melt. So all you have to do is throw I think it's 6 enemies into the fire. Yeah, it's about 6 enemies to throw into the fire before the chests melt completely. This actually gives us an opportunity to talk about Kratos' grab in God of War 2. Not only is Kratos' launch, which we discussed earlier, slower in God of War 2, his grab of the basic God of War 2 enemies is also pretty slow. You don't want to rely on grabs too much, especially not when enemies are about to attack you, because Kratos is not invincible while he's grabbing. There are a few precious frames of when Kratos is first grabbing an enemy where he is completely vulnerable to anything. And because it's pretty slow, it takes a while for him to get into a state of invincibility where you can start attacking an enemy or throwing them towards other enemies. Kratos is pretty vulnerable when he's grabbing enemies, because it's a lot slower to do so in God of War 2 as compared to the original God of War. So you want to be really, really careful about grabbing enemies in this game. It's not always the safest thing to do. It's all about finding the best opportunity to grab enemies, really. That's what makes the combat in God of War 2 a little bit more immersive than God of War 1's high difficulty combat. Now that we have our first piece of magic, our first actual piece of magic, not just that opening hour Poseidon's Rage, now we have, Typhon's Bane. Now we have the ability to fire arrows, which is pretty cool. It costs a little bit of magic to fire arrows, but it's not a crazy amount. It is cheap magic. It is decent for long range fights. It's not something I'm going to use that often compared to the other magic that we'll be getting in the game, but it's not bad. It's a good way to start off. You have infinite magic for this part of the game when you're being introduced to the weapon, obviously, as we always do. The archers in the background take 2 arrows to die, and they can do a lot of damage, so be sure to move around every time they're trying to attack you, so that you can not take damage, because you may have infinite magic for this introductory part of the fight, but you don't have infinite health, and you have very low health at this point, considering we lost everything to Zeus last episode. Even though Zeus is barely in this game, like him physically is in this game, his presence is felt all throughout. It's really effective how they made Zeus such a force, despite the fact that he only appears for like in this 9-hour game, he appears for like half an hour max. Like 45 minutes of this 9-hour game has Zeus in it. And the rest of the time, it's just people talking about Zeus or Kratos going after Zeus. It's really well done how they managed to make Zeus such an imposing figure, even though he's not in that much of the game. Here I'm just speeding up because we have to backtrack all the way, and there's absolutely no fights between when we got Typhon's Bane and when we exited Typhon's Cavern. So, oh boy, it takes a while to get out. So I just sped all that up. Now that we have our arrows, we have an opportunity to collect a whole bunch of stuff here before we get to move on towards the end. I mentioned before that this section is not that long. We're already almost done. After we free Prometheus from his chains of life, as it were, we'll get to move on. We'll get to leave the layer of the Titan and move on to bigger and grander things, as I was saying before.
Freed Prometheus from the torment of the gods. His flesh has tainted the fires of Olympus and embodied it with the power of the Titans. These ashes will give you great strength, Kratos. Take them within you use this strength to defeat your enemies. Let the rage of the Titans fuel your blades, Kratos.
And by killing Prometheus, we get the Rage of the Titans, which is going to be our special rage attack, as you can imagine. God of War 1, we had Rage of the Gods, now we have Rage of the Titans. Rage of the Titans, I think, is better than the Rage of the Gods from God of War 1. I think it's more effective. I think it's really cool that you can activate it at any time. You don't need a full Rage of the Gods meter to actually use the Rage of the Titans. You just need some, and you can activate it at any time. The attacks are pretty strong. You're not able to block anymore while you're using it, which is kind of a downside. Your attacks are pretty strong. It's not something you should rely on, but it's pretty good. It's pretty effective. It's pretty decent. I got no real complaints against the feature. I do kind of have a complaint against its usage in the final boss, in that it is required for one part of the final boss that we're going to get to, way later on. But if you don't know that it's required for the final boss, then you are absolutely screwed, because you will die in like 2 seconds and not understand why you died, and it's kind of BS when we eventually get to it. But for now, in terms of its regular usage and gameplay, it's fine. I got no issue with it. Now that we have it, though, we're officially done with the Lair of the Titan. Now all we have to do is backtrack until we can get out of here. And the only way to do that is by returning through that big long cave that we came into, and then raise the Hand of Typhon so that we can actually get our Pegasus out. The Rage of the Titans is the ability we needed to raise up the Hand of Typhon to get the Pegasus out. So it's a good thing it worked out that Prometheus was here. Otherwise we would never have gotten out of here, because we would have to go and talk to Typhon again. He's not in a talking mood. In the novelization, he was in a talking mood. He talks about how, in exchange for his exile in this mountain, Zeus made sure that no one harmed his family. So it's kind of tragic why he's here and why he doesn't trust Kratos or Gaia. Because if he does anything overt, then Zeus is going to go and kill his family in retaliation. And actually, the novelization is pretty interesting, because Kratos talks about how he lets Typhon live, and he talks about how that's a mercy that he provided to Typhon, that he could have killed him if he wanted to, but he chose not to. Whereas in this game, we're kind of just taking what we want from him and leaving, while the novelization gives us more insight into what Kratos was thinking with his decision of just taking the Typhon's Bane. And it's revealed that he just took it because he just wanted to get what he needed and then leave. This door can only be opened with Rage of the Titans, showing you that you need it for some things. Chests that glow yellow and give you yellow orbs power up your Rage of the Titans to max. Here we're powering up Athena's Blades. I don't know why the blood powered up my Athena's Blades so quickly, but that's just what it was. The first thing we're going to be focusing on powering up is our Blades of Athena. So, hooray, we got to level 2. And we have our L1 circle attack, which is that really cool little single target focused melee combo that Kratos just did. It's a really powerful combo. I use it a lot during God of War 2. I find it really useful. It does a lot of damage to a single target, but if other targets are in line, then it also really helps deal with them too. To maximize orb count, make sure that you're grabbing as many enemies as possible, not just throwing them, but either attacking them until they die or doing a special grab takedown after you press circle to grab an enemy, you can press triangle to do a grab takedown. You can do square to attack them, or you can press circle again to to throw them. At least I think that's what it is. I played God of War 2 a while ago at this point. But there are 3 things that Kratos can do with an enemy. He can either just keep attacking them until they die, which is what he's doing right now. He can throw them, which is what he just did, or he can do a special takedown, which is unique to every enemy type to kill them instantly that way. You definitely want to kill as many enemies as possible with grabs, because that is going to ensure that you get brutal kills, and brutal kills give you 5 extra red orbs. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in the early game, that is a lot, and you want to maximize your orb count as quickly as possible in God of War 2, especially in Titan mode when you don't have that many orbs to work with in the first place. Now we're returning to Typhon. There's going to be a few more enemies to take on here. To Typhon's hand, I should say. There's going to be a few more enemies to take on here. Thankfully, not nearly as many as when we came down, but it's still a few. So, best way to deal with enemies when climbing walls or exploring ceilings is just grabbing them. Don't bother trying to fight them in Titan mode. Just grab them and deal with them quickly that way. I believe now we're all done. We're back. We're back to where we started. The chests up here don't respawn. I'm going to double check and make sure if they respawned or not, but none of the chests up here respawn. So if you collected everything up here the first time, that's great. If you didn't, then you're just going to have to. You'll have an opportunity to collect everything here again before you leave. God of War 2 is pretty good at giving players multiple opportunities to collect chests multiple times by having players revisit an area multiple times. And instead of just having new stuff respawn at the same place, it just gives you an opportunity to collect the thing again if you haven't the first time you were there. That doesn't happen in every case. God of War 2 is not that open, but there are plenty of opportunities where you will have multiple tries to collect a thing if you didn't the first time. Now it's time for us to leave. We have our second Pegasus minigame. It's going to be after a cutscene, and that's going to conclude with another boss fight. But for now, we're just exiting the lair of the Titan. We're getting ready for our long trip to the Island of Creation. As I said before, Island of Creation is really, really far away. So I'll see you after this next cutscene.
Kratos, behold the Island of Creation, home to the Sisters of Fate. Here, the path to your true destiny begins. The island is fraught with danger. It was created to prevent all from reaching the 3 Sisters of Fate. The power of the Sisters will allow you to return to that moment when Zeus betrayed and killed you, Kratos, thus changing your fate and the fate of others.
Okay, Pegasus minigame part 2. Now we have Typhon's Bane. It's kind of training you and getting you to use it now. Don't use it now. This first part where a bunch of archers are, throwing their volleys at you, don't bother with wasting your magic yet. Just dodge the arrows. When the Raven shows up, charge into it so you can do the QTE to automatically kill it. Once you kill that first Raven, you're going to have a bunch of Harpies joining on the fun. The Harpies are when you can start using Typhon's Bane if you want to dispatch them and deal with them as quickly as possible. Harpies are an exception to the slam attack. Don't use slam attacks to deal with Harpies. There are too many of them. Just use your Blades of Athena, square or triangle attacks, doesn't matter which one. Just get rid of them all as quickly as possible. They do a lot of damage. Even just the regular Harpies do a lot of damage. Oh, God. Titan mode. Once the Harpies are dispatched, you will be dealing with undead soldiers who are riding on griffins, 2 at a time, I believe. I believe they come at you in teams of 2. Same strategy as in the first minigame. Just use your slam attack. Don't bother with the Blades of Chaos, with the Blades of Athena too much. Just use your slam attack, L1 or R1, depending on which direction they're in. It's the fastest way to get rid of them. They come in teams of 2. After you take care of the first pair of undead soldiers riding griffins, Another Raven is going to show up again, just charge into that. Do the QTE, kill it. Another pair of undead, a second pair of undead soldiers is going to come in and try to ruin your day. Deal with them just as you dealt with the first pair. There are some really cool QTEs if you have an opportunity to do some. They're really fun. God of War 2 has quite the spectacle when it wants to be, which is most of the time. Most of its runtime. But yeah, dodge the volley of arrows. If you're being overwhelmed by a griffin, then go ahead and charge forward. You will have a few moments to relax before the griffin and the soldier catch back up to you. After you deal with the second pair of undead soldiers on their griffins, you will be able to finally encounter and properly fight the Dark Rider. The Dark Rider is the boss of this Pegasus minigame. It operates pretty similarly to the regular soldiers. I die 2 more times here, both times to the BS that is that little minigame where you're chasing him across the air current. I don't like that minigame. It's kind of bugged, at least in the PS3 remaster of God of War 2. But it's not the worst thing. Actually fighting the Dark Rider in this part is really easy. He has very, very basic attacks. He's either going to use his Spear of Destiny, which is his weapon of choice, something that we'll be getting and looking at later, to fire like shotgun blasts at you that are powerful but don't have range to them, or he's going to have his Griffin just try to slam into you, just as your Pegasus can slam into it. So you have the entire screen. The Dark Rider doesn't have any backup as compared to the undead soldiers that we saw before, so you don't need to worry too much. You do enough damage, you get into the air current minigame. Dodge left, dodge down, dodge right. I believe the pattern is the same every time, so if you can memorize the pattern, you should be fine, or just watch this video for reference on this pattern. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all next time for more Let's Play God of War 2.